Good morning, guys and girls. It's coming to you from the Thompson Times. Well, what we have here is we got a big race week this week, and we got like really like 3 days to get this bike finished up and ready to rock and roll for the weekend for a customer. This is one of the world's fastest Grudge 1000 nitrous, not turbo, but nitrous 1000 Suzuki, built by Highway 20, and as you see right now, she pretty much is stripped down. Nothing. The motor is in pieces. And we got to have this baby up and running by Wednesday because we leaving out Thursday morning, maybe Thursday evening, heading to Darlington for a big grudge event. When I say a big one, I mean a big one. It's one of the biggest grudge events probably gonna be in the world. The first grudge race for Highway 20. So hope we can get our own bikes ready and plus our customers' bike ready to do good this weekend in Darlington. But as y'all see, as of right now, no motor. We got to put this whole bike back together in less than let's say 3 days because we got to have it up and running, and they got to be to pick it up by Thursday, and we got to have our own trailer loaded up by Thursday and get ready to hit the road. So we got a tough task on hand, but maybe we can make it happen. Well, let's see. I just put my transmission in, line my shift forks up in my dogs, well, in my transmission. So before you bolt it down all the way, just make sure you check it. You can shift it and make sure you go through all the gears to make sure that you got your shift forks in correctly. And when I say your shift forks is if you can see right here, this is the shift fork. That's for your fourth and fifth gear, fifth and sixth gear. Then this your shift drum right here that your shift forks rise on. And you got two more shift forks behind here for first through fourth gears. So to make sure you got them in the slot in the transmission, you want to shift your transmission and make sure it go through the gears. That's first, that's neutral, second, third, fourth, fifth, and that's six. You got 6 gears. That's it. So now you know you got everything in the slots, and you can go ahead and bolt it down and tighten all your bolts down. And the reason why I like to check it before I get done with the motor just in case you don't put the shift fork in right and it be locked up. So then you gotta take the motor all the way completely out and unbolt everything, then start back, back over. So you can kind of catch it before you get to that point. Okay. When we just done then, this your transmission case. We just tighten all the 8 millimeter bolts up and make sure they was torqued and tightened to the specs. And there you have it. So now we figure ready to put our oil paint on. And first of all, you got to make sure you got your O-ring for your oil pan pickup. If you don't have this O-ring in here, then it's not gonna let it build oil pressure. Then you're gonna mess your motor up. So make sure you got the O-ring in there. And we got a low profile oil pan on it. So this is a customized pickup for it. And I like to use the one that swivels. They got different ones out there. They got the ones that bolt up like a factory one and don't move. But this one right here, it moves with the bike. So when the bike get ready to take off, when the bikes take off, all the oil goes to the back. So your swivel gonna do what? It's gonna go to the back. Then when you get ready to stop, when the bike start going forward, the oil will start going back to the front of the motor. So the pickup gonna follow the oil and go back to the front of the motor. But the ones that sit there and bolts up and don't move, it can't follow the oil. So it'll sometimes it lets you get a air bubble. Okay, now right here, this is your release valve. You got the factory release valve, then you got a high pressure release valve. And this is what this one is a high pressure release valve and in the motor, which the oil pump gears right here, a high volume oil pump gear. So that lets the bike build up more oil pressure. So now we run when you crank the bike up, we probably run between 80 to 100 psi that's running when factory it normally runs between let's say 30 to 50 psi. So it bumps it up a lot more oil pressure. It then helps to say get the oil to your rod bearings, your main bearings on your crank, and your camshaft. Okay, now it's time to put your oil pan on. So you got to make sure you line your oil pan gasket up because you can put it on wrong. Like this way, it don't line up with your boat hose. So all you got to do is just flip it over and line it up just like that. Now you see all your boat holes line up. Okay. And then this is a flat oil pan. It's a DME oil pan. They make about the best oil pans on the market for motorcycles. So what you do is you got your release valve pocket right here. So you make sure you line your release valve up with your oil pan first and just set it down on there. And it should just pop right on. Okay, then next what you do is, I normally just take me 2 screws, stick one in on one side at the back and line it up so I can screw my boat in. Then I go to the opposite side and kind of rock it to make sure you got your boat started. And what that'll do is that'll help you from tearing your gasket up when you try to screw all your boats in there. Now since you got that line up, you're ready to go. You can start putting all of them in and start tightening them up. Now do not over tighten your boats because you can put a hairline crack in your oil pan if you tighten your boats up too tight. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to over tighten your oil pan boat. Especially on the factory oil pan, you'll put a hairline crack in it. All right, since we got the oil pan on the bottom of it, got the transmission case bolted up from the bottom. Now you flip your motor back over to the upright position. Now you got your top case bolts, which is right here. You got to make sure you got your 8 millimeter bolts and you got 6 Allen bolts that goes in here. All right, and you got one that's hidden down inside right here. Then you're gonna have an 8 millimeter bolt to your side right here. So you got to make sure you get all your bolts back in there, get them tightened down and torqued to specs. So this gonna be your top half of your case. Then you got a couple of them that got washers on them. So you got to make sure you put the washers in the right spot. You're gonna have 2 washers. You're gonna have a washer that goes right here on your 6 Allen. You're gonna have another washer that goes right here in this hole with the 6 Allen. Then you're gonna have one more for your oil hole, which goes right here. Gotta have a washer on it. Then the rest of them have no washer. Okay. Now with your 8 millimeters, you got a long one that goes right over here to your side, to your right side of your motor. Then you got 3 more, be the same side, lined up across the back. And there you go. Then this is your motor mount one. But what I normally do, I just go ahead and put this sticker bolt in here to tighten my case down and keep it tight. But when you get ready to put your ground wire on it, you gotta take the bolt back out, put the ground wire back in it, then tighten your bolt back down. But as of right now, with the case being freshly glued, you want to put a bolt in here to squeeze it down to make sure the glue dry real good on the back of it for where your ground wire go to. Then I normally just take that little drill and just kind of snug them down. Then I come back and tighten them all the way down. Then you got your 8 millimeters right here that you got to tighten down. That's it. Okay, well now we get into the figure ready to put the head on the bike. So to get ready to assembling the head, and I got some heavy duty APE studs. I'm gonna put in the head. Now with on your studs, you got one that got long threads on one end, and you got some kind of shorter threads on the other end. If you look at it, you got this side gonna be longer, and you're gonna have shorter on this end. So your longer threads gonna go inside your block. So you'll screw them inside the block like that, and the shorter threads gonna go on your head nut for the head. But before you put them in, you gotta make sure you put some kind of assembly lube on there, anti-seize, because you don't want to, put them in non-lubrication in your hose. So give me some. I got some assembly lube, and what I do is I take my lube and I pour on there. I lube up real good. Then what I do is I just screw them, kind of just hand tighten them in first to get all of them started. Now always remember the long end gonna go inside the case. Okay, now since I got all my studs hand tightened, what I do is I get me one stud that don't have an opening in the top of it. I mean the nut. I give me one stud nut that don't have an opening in the top of it. It's closed. Like these the ones I'm gonna use to assemble the motor because they got an opening in the top so the stud can come all the way through. But I take this nut and I got me a little dial pin, a real small one, short one, that I'm gonna stick in there. And the reason why I'm gonna do that is when I get ready to tighten my nuts down, my studs down, my nut ain't gonna get stuck on my stud. So what I do is I make sure I take my time and don't drop it, and I screw it on there. So it's gonna stop at the dial pin, so I ain't gonna let it go all the way up inside the nut and get jammed up. So now I get me a 14 millimeter socket, and I just take my drill and I'm gonna run it down until it gets tight. And once it get tight, I'm gonna take my ratchet and I'm just gonna double check it and just tighten it on up some more. That's it. Now your studs that's in there good and tight. Then you'll back your nut back off and you do the rest on the same way. Take your nut and your dial pin and put on the next one and screw them all the way down. And just take your time. When you take it out, make sure your dial pin don't come out. Go to the next one and do it the same way. what we finna do is we finna put the cam chain guys in. You gotta this so much you got to have in before you get ready to bolt your cylinder head on. You gotta have your guides. This was where your cam chain gonna ride in. You got your front guide, which is gonna look like this, and you gotta make sure you got it in before you even put your head gasket on or anything because it got a groove it gotta fit in the top of the cases. Rock it down in the motor. You might have to rock it back and forward to get it in, but you gotta make sure that it fits down in that groove right there. It's gonna fit in this groove. So once it fit in the groove, then you're gonna come down here to the bottom of your case and you got a hole. You got to line it up in the hole right there. And what you do is take you some Loctite and put your little Loctite on your screw so it won't try to bag out on you. And then you just screw it in there and tighten it up and torque it down. Now you gotta always make sure when you put these guides in, you got your cam chain on. Because if you don't have the cam chain in your motor, you're gonna have to take the guides all the way back out to put your cam chain back, to put the cam chain in. So always make sure your cam chain is on. Now this your back guide right here that your cam chain tensioner gonna ride on to tighten your cam chain up. And it's the same way. You line it up in the back, put your little Loctite on your boat, and you screw it in.
So why is this covered up right here?
Okay, this is my clutch. This is a grudge motor, and we got a couple of secrets that we don't want nobody to see, like the slider clutch. It's an MTC slider clutch, and you got different springs and weights on your arms. The weight what makes the clutch lock in and slip. So we can't show y'all this part of the clutch because it got my secret setup on there. And then all you do is you just tighten your two screws up and torque them down to your torque settings. That'll be it. Okay, now once you get your two bolts tightened up, you want to make sure that your cam chain guide can move. Now, if you got your bolt too tight, it'll just sit there and then stay stuck. It won't move. But you see how it got free play in it? You want to make sure you got free play. If not, you have to bag off on your boat a little. That's a little bit, not a whole lot. That's why you put your Loctite on there to make sure the boat don't try to bag out. And that's it. The head gasket on. So this is the head gasket. It's a 3 mil over, so it'd be 76 millimeter. So what I'm gonna do is, some people like to use copper coat on the head gasket to coat it, but I got my own. I'm gonna use some gasket sealer. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna coat the gasket real light. You ain't gotta coat it real heavy. That's a little light coat on both sides of the gasket. Then you sit it down on top of your block and bolt your head down. You just put a nice little light coat over it. This side coated. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and put the side that's coated, go ahead and put it on the motor right now. Since we have the heavy duty studs in there, it's gonna take a little work. You might have to push in on your cam chain guys to get it to go down. But it'll go in there. It might be a little tight. You just take your time and kind of work it. Just like that. You want to try to take your time and trying to go you know, get it to go down at the same kind. Sometimes you might have to get you some and kind of bump it down a little bit. And there you go. So now you're gonna put your gasket sealer on your top half. But now if I was using copper coat, I would have sprayed both sides of my gasket first, then put it on. But I'm not using the copper coat. All right, now this is your cylinder head. We figure get ready to put it on. I done got my head gasket glued on both sides. Also, the key thing is up on the bottom of the head, make sure you have a clean surface. Make sure it's good and clean. No oil. Make sure I sent the head off to get it milled to make sure it was good and flat. So I know I got a true flat surface right here. My block is a true flat surface because I got it milled too. So now we figure out to assemble the head and torque it down. And it's the same way. You're gonna have to work with your cam chain guys to get them to work or to fit in. Cause sometimes they don't want to go in. You have to bend them a little bit to get the head to go through your studs. And what I normally do, I go ahead and try to get me a magnet and hold my cam chain up so I can push in on my cam chain guides. Okay, as you can see, we got the head in. Sometimes you might take your little mallet and hit the head to get your dowel pins to go in. Like right on this side, I got my dowel pin still ain't went in, so I'm gonna give me a little rubber mallet and tap the top of my head to go ahead and knock my head down on my dowel pin. Then once I get that done, I gotta put I got some head washers I'm gonna put in on each one of my studs. And then you gotta make sure you got washers on your head studs. Then you tighten your head nuts down and you tighten and torque them down to the spec. Okay, as you see, I just used my rubber mallet and I knocked my dowel pin down on my head. So now I'm ready to start torquing and putting my head nuts and my washers on there and torque them down.
So what do you have in your hand?
Well, I got the head washers for my nuts, and I just take a flathead screwdriver or a Phillips head, whatever you want, and put it on top of my stud, and while my washer can just slide right down on top of it.